Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Sheldon Klassen. Sheldon found himself out of work and unsure of what his next steps were going to be. 16 years invested in his automotive trade, over in a heartbeat with absolutely no control. His life flipped upside down 3 weeks after his first child, Pearl, was born. At that moment, Sheldon knew his life would never be the same. Join me as we discover Sheldon's digital journey as we explore mindset, marketing, and mentorship. Find out the inner fears and obstacles that he had to overcome to become a stay-at-home father and full-time marketer. Lastly, let us find out why so many are flocking towards affiliate marketing and why many experts consider it the most profitable method online. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Sheldon. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, Dwight.
Awesome. How are you doing today?
I'm super excited, my friend. So we've been talking about doing this episode for a while, and I'm glad we finally had a chance to sit down and get it recorded and do it.
Absolutely. Sometimes life gets in the way. We just have to push it aside and make time for the things that are most important. And I know this is going to be a fantastic conversation. So let's get at her. So tell me, Sheldon, what's your origin story? And the reason I ask that is, like I tell people, I'm a huge Marvel fan, and you look at how Marvel has spun what the origin story is. They start in the middle, and then all of a sudden they come out with movies that talk about the origin. Well, I don't want to start in the middle. I want to start at the beginning. So tell me, Sheldon, what are the key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you are at currently? What is your origin story?
Wow, what a great question, Dwight. Thanks again for having me. It's funny. Entrepreneurship has always kind of been in my family. Since I was, I think, 5 years old. I can remember my dad having a hardware store. So he owned a McLeod's True Value, and it was in a small town in Saskatchewan. So I kind of always remember my dad being at the store, my mom being there, and always having that entrepreneur spirit, right? So, of course, the store, and we followed the store out west into a small town just outside of Edmonton and Tofield, and I grew up there from the age of 9 to 18, and really, loved the small town, hated it for some reasons too, because everyone knows everyone and things of that nature, right? But really what I learned along the way was really, the if I could really say one word, and I'm just kind of blurting it out right now, is probably dedication. My dad spent so much time at the shop, right? He was dedicated to making that business work, and that was being the bottle washer, the tax accountant, the bookkeeper, the one who stocked the shelves, the one who rang you in at the end of the day, the one who mopped the floors, and the one who shoveled the sidewalks. He did everything for the business. So the one word that I guess would kind of sum it all up is dedication. And really, when I look at what I do now, and I went into automotive, and that was a 16-year-old career, right? I started as mechanic and started as all tradesmen do, kind of chasing the dollar, right? I was working in a shop, and I figured, you know what, I love hot rods, so I might as well become an apprentice and make more money doing what exactly I'm doing now. And that led to 4 years of schooling. And really at the end of it, I realized, working underneath the truck, that I hated it. right? I wanted to work with people, and being underneath the dirty truck all day, I wasn't able to work with people. So I worked my way from a tech all the way up to service manager. And as you mentioned, 3 weeks after my little girl was born, I got the phone call into my office, and my boss goes, "How's life?" And I said, "It's fantastic." And he said, "That's great, man." And he reached down, he pulled out a pink slip, slid it across the desk, and said, "Thanks a lot for coming." And, it was the defining moment in my life, because I realized at that particular moment that I didn't really control my destiny. And with my wife being at home on maternity leave, now, with her taking care of the baby, for all those that have kids, your first child is like a game changer, right? I call it the TSN turning point or the ESPN turning point, right? Because it's just an absolute game changer. And I realized at that particular point that I never wanted anyone to control my destiny again. And at that particular point, I really started looking for ways that I could make income online. And I ran into affiliate marketing, and sure glad I did.
Oh, that's amazing. So some things that you mentioned there, yes, having children is there's no manual. They should have a manual. That first kid is way different than the second kid, as you know,
Yeah.
in the sense not necessarily their personalities, but how we raise them, how we deal with things. We're not always on pins and needles and in a reactive state. And that's how some people are, I guess, when it comes to starting new businesses too. They're always in a reactive state until they figure it out. But you talked about the fact that some of this, and I've known you for a long time, just so the listeners realize, Sheldon and I have known each other since about 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
We met in a company, in a finance company. We worked together. We became friends. We just connected, and we've stayed connected ever since. But yeah, there's things I didn't know that I knew a little bit of it, but you talked about dedication, and we got to focus on that, because dedication, or that person that is the individual that does everything. They're the head bottle washer. They're the master of everything, but really not focused on anything. My dad was similar in his own business, and he'd be the person. He didn't have, his pride didn't stop him from mopping the floors, cleaning the toilets. He did whatever it took to continue with his entrepreneur dream. And he instilled that value system into me as well, that you need to be, see, you talk about dedication. I talk about it, the fact that it made me
I,
tenacity. Nobody was going to
oh,
slow me down. Nobody was going to tell me I couldn't do nothing, and nothing was beneath me. And
yeah.
everybody was at the same level until they give me such a feeling that they shouldn't be in my realm. Everybody was at a level of same respect. If didn't matter where they are when I've worked with them, if they're brand new starting, I always wanted to support people. And I know you're the
Yeah.
same. And
Yeah.
that's why you and I continue to slay it. We have good moments, we have bad moments, but yeah, dedication. So you
You,
talked about dedication. Explain some more. What exactly does that, how does that affect you?
yeah. You know what? Dedication is everything, right? Like you have to, it's kind of like having kids is dedication, right? I read one, I forget which book it was, but they said having a kid is like getting a tattoo on your face. You better make sure that you want it, right? I think like Mike Tyson at that particular point, I'm like, what's going through his head when he got that? Anyways, but it's so true. Like dedication, you have to dedicate yourself in order to become successful at anything, whether it's parenting, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's doing something new at your work, or maybe it's even doing something old at your work. You know what I mean? Some of us have been in our jobs a long time, but that's also dedication to the company. Nothing happens overnight. No true success. I really believe that, right? You may see it on like line, you may think it happens all the time, but you never see what happens beyond the camera. It's like that iceberg, right? Where the iceberg, the tip of it's above and then the real iceberg's below the water, right? And it's the same thing. People only ever see what's above the water. They only see like when you become the success. They never saw the thousands of hours that you sat there and you put into video, that you sat here on a podcast talking to other people. They never take that into account as to what happens, but it's the dedication that you turn around and have to persevere that turns around and takes you to that next step. I think about my affiliate, my digital I think everyone at some particular point has wanted to quit, has wanted, and I think that's the only time that you ever really fail at anything is when you quit. And I'm not talking like bad habits, because those are success stories. But when you quit doing something like chasing your dreams and you quit on something like that, that's terrible.
How many people do you think, they talk about it all the time, but, and I know this to be true for many people, so many people quit and the finish line is literally around the corner. The light just hasn't bent around the corner because that's not the properties of light, but so they can't see that they're just so close and they just get disheveled. Do you think that a big majority of that is our support network? And how important is our support network to making sure that we don't quit?
Oh, great question. I think it's so important. You talk about almost being at the finish line, and sometimes we end up digging and we're digging and we're digging and our heads down in the ground, and all of a sudden we look up and we realize like we're digging the wrong area. And then there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we haven't taken the time to actually lift our head because we're so focused on the day-to-day stuff that we notice that we're a little bit off course. Right. And when the gold mine's here and we're right here, it just takes a coach or it takes a mentor to be able to say, you know what, stop digging over there. You just need to come back over here and follow this trail. Right. And I think that's the most important thing. So you don't stop where you're digging. You just course correct and you keep on digging. And eventually it's going to get you to that promised land.
Yeah. So mentorship's key to helping that out. I know myself and you, we've unfortunately had people that we thought were the end all and be all of mentorship, or been in masterminds that we thought were going to take us to the promised land. And we've had the rug pulled out from underneath us. Do you have any keys or any, thoughts that you could tell the listeners on how to look for the right mentor or possibly mastermind?
You know what? It comes down to a lot of things. I think everyone can turn around and say that we've been in a bad course or we've taken a bad, for those that have invested online or whatever, right? But here's the key. There's two keys here. One is if we're relying on other people to turn around and make our successes for reality, we're fooling ourselves, because at the end of the day, it's all up to us to be able to fulfill on what we see that we do. So if you think that, for example, the presidential election is happening right now, if you think that, just because Joe Biden's president right now, that everything's going to be taken care of in your world and everything else, you're falsely mistaken. It's still up to us to be able to create our future and our identity within whatever social circumstances or whatever government is in power. We have the opportunity to be our best and to be whatever we want to be in that situation.
Yeah, you bring up the fact of politics, and I'm gonna add a few more things to that. So we got politics, we have the news, we have social media, we have our own, our own little world of family and friends and people that are constantly striving to drag us off the path of where we're at. And I find that our associations and what we associate with, and I've talked about this many of my podcasts already and on my video logs, that we need to correct what we ingest and put into our minds. And you're right, it doesn't matter who's in political power, even in Canada, whether it's on a federal, provincial, or a municipal level. All we can do is control our own little world and environment and our associations and keep that poison away. One of the biggest problems that is causing division and driving people apart is the fact that they're listening to all the noise of the US elections, or what we're going through in Alberta right now, where people are upset because where's our premier? Why isn't he doing more in regards to our high COVID numbers and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Do I need to really know that to move my life forward? Absolutely not.
No.
I need to live my best version of me and those that are surrounding me. And, I call it Dwight's world.
Always, right?
Be in Dwight's world. I'll be part of your world. We'll commingle. We'll have our worlds across each other like you and I. We'll support one another and keep the damn social media and news as a tool, not as a weapon to destroy your lives.
Well, that's
Right?
it. And the second part to that is like how you show up to it, right? If you just half-ass it and you aren't showing up, and, you know, I believe how you show up to is everything. Like you could be in the world's worst course, but there's something there to be taught and there's something there to be learned, right? So to go in and say, you know what, I know it all, that course sucked because I like, it's a false way that you can turn around and go into it. Your intention needs to be that I'm going to learn something and I'm going to get better as a result of it. And maybe that better is just realizing that that course or that person wasn't who you necessarily made them out to be. Because a lot of times when we talk about people, for example, we have a tendency to put people on pedestals, right? And we look up to them. And at the end of the day, that's not the way it is at all. You know, we all live on the same pedestal, right? They're people that put on their pants the same way as we do. They're people that put on their shirts, right? It might be different legs at different times or different ways, but they all turn around and get dressed at the end of the day, right? So what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And when you play at 110%, here's a couple of cool things that happen. The people around you are allowed to play at 110% because you're playing so hard that they want to play hard to keep up. Right. And if you aren't that person that wants to drive and be the top person of that course, you know, I just started one here, you know, this morning again. But if you don't want to be the top person in your course, that's the wrong mindset. If you're just thinking of going in and just learning some stuff and you know, being a little bit better for it, great. But if you actually want to go and apply it, you want to go make a difference in other people's lives, you have to go share that information also. So those are just a couple of valuable tips that I personally believe in that's turned around and helped me in my business and personal life as well.
Yeah. And that's, you know, so true though. So many people, they're always looking for the golden nugget. They're always putting people, like you said, on a pedestal. And really, the difference between you and that person you're putting on the pedestal is time. And they've had just as many mistakes. They don't necessarily share it, just like you mentioned prior in regards to podcasting or whatever we're doing. People don't realize, they see the finished product. They don't see all the what took you to build up the amount of stairs to get up on the pedestal or whatever the case may be. Like you mentioned that we're all on the pedestal, but you know, people don't realize when you're have knowledge and you don't share it, you're actually doing not just society a disservice, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're not fulfilling. All of us, and I think innately want to be servants in the sense of making other people happy and driving them to have a better life. Because if we're a truly kind individual, we want to be brought along for the ride with others when we're starting, and to not do the same thing for other new people that are trying to attempt to do what we're doing is wrong. We need to continually be servants of others, to be a leader, and realize that we're all human. We all, like you said, put our pants on one leg at a time.
Well,
And, you know,
and unique, you know, the other thing is that we're unique, you
like
know,
our
and
fingerprints. Yeah.
like our fingerprints, right? No one's going to tell you something the way that Dwight's going to tell you something. No one's going to turn around and tell you the exact same way that I'm going to tell it. So, right. So when you're looking for coaches, you want to be able to turn around and relate. And a lot of people get scared because they're like, oh, well, I can't. No, like none of it's really new. It's all regurgitated. It's just the way that we have the ability to turn around and tell it or teach it to someone. So like 3 big philosophies, and I'm sure you've all heard this, is learn, do, and teach, right? Like we all have the ability to learn something new. We take action in doing. And then the third thing is like teaching it to someone else, right? When you teach that knowledge to someone else, first of all, you get pride by being able to instill some knowledge to help someone else, right? As we talked about. But the second thing is like you get to learn it twice because now you're teaching it to someone else. And that's the cool thing, right? And a lot of people, right, and just follow me one step further, a lot of people will be like, that's such great insight. But that's not insight that I made up. It's information that I learned from a fellow mentor named Jim Quick. And Jim Quick probably didn't make it up. Jim Quick probably got it from his mentor, right? So it's all the same thing. It's regurgitated, but it's how you share it that makes it special and unique.
I love the way you put that. One of the things that somebody taught me, I think it was about 20, 25 years ago, is when you learn something from somebody, you go to a course or you're at a conference or you're having a conversation, and you find out something really neat. The first time you share it with others, you give that person credit. The second time you say, "Oh, I heard this from such and," you don't really say their name. The third time you own that shit because it is you. It's now you. There is no new ideas or thoughts because you dial this back to all the motivational uh, books out there, speakers, conferences, and you even look at somebody like Tony Robbins. He talks about the fact, he never, some of this information isn't new, right? Go back
Yeah,
as far as Earl Nightingale, back on old vinyl records, one of the first motivational speakers. And they talk about the fact that one of the most powerful motivational things on the planet is the Bible, right? And that a lot of the messages that people are out regurgitating, they've taken out the religious component of it, but it all started somewhere. And even the Bible, that's in print, but it come from somewhere else. It came from human beings.
that's
And we
right.
need to understand that, there's really no new information. I'm delivering it in the world of my world where people resonate with me and I resonate with them. And that somebody else could be saying, like you said, the same message a total different way, but they like dropping F-bombs and that resonates with people
That,
like an Andy Frisella. So, no
yeah.
disrespect to him, but people resonate with that. And then other people will avoid it because they don't like that. And they like me because they like the pink rosy glasses or whatever the case may be, right? They like looking at things differently. So yeah,
Yeah.
you brought up a valid point. So I got one of the questions that I like to ask people is, have you had many critics on your journey to be your own entrepreneur? And if so, how did you deal with your critics?
Yeah, I think we all have critics along the way, right? Like people that are haters and stuff like that. I really believe that when you get a hater, you're kind of on the right path, right? But I think the biggest critic at the end of the day is yourself. What goes on in your own mind, right? And what other people do, you just kind of let it reinforce what's already going on in your head. So in order to turn around and kind of naysay or like mute the haters, you have to kind of fixate on what's going on in your mindset, first of all, right? Because your mindset has to be of such that the haters doesn't matter, because that point alone stops so many people from ever moving forward or ever taking a step forward. They're afraid of what people may think. And that's the number one thing. And when you turn around and you can kind of alleviate yourself away from that, when you don't care what anyone thinks, that you're just doing it for the joy of doing it, for the pride of doing it, not for the money, just for the love of doing it, that's when you start to excel. And that's when things start to happen. I read a good post today, something to the effect of, you have two lives, one where you care what people think and one where you don't. And the second one is where you excel. And I think it's so true when you actually turn around and alleviate those people and those haters from your life. That's when you can turn around and make the biggest difference. You can go out and serve 100 people, and 7 of those 100 people are going to turn around and say, "Sheldon, I don't like that information. That was crappy information." And what most of us will turn around and end up doing is we'll focus on those 7 people who told us it was crappy information and they didn't like it. And we fixate ourselves on those 7 people versus focusing on the 93 people that got super value, that got amazing content from you, that took lots from you, that loved the information. But we focus on the 7 people, or the 7% that hated it. Why is that? Right? So you need to be able to shift the focus to be able to serve. And a lot of people here too, just one step further on that, even if it's just one person, people don't want to show up for one person. But it's being mentally tough enough to be able to show up for one, to be able to serve one person at a time, that's going to turn around and make you or break you. And I think those are just valuable lessons that you can turn around and apply in that situation.
Completely. And I think the biggest thing, though, is the reason people focus on so much on what others think and forget about only reaching out to one person is our education system. Our
No.
education system, and it's not just in Canada, it's in the US, it's in the world in general. They put people into a little group situation. They talk to us about the fact that, you got to act a certain way because what will the group think? And, it's in it. We could get into this and speak for hours about it, but bottom line, we need to realize that the committee of they, right? The people of
Absolutely.
society, unless they're, I always tell people, unless they're paying my, my mental, my financial or a physical paycheck of some sort, their opinion is not my reality, right? It just can't be. It has to be about that one. And I liked how you put that. And that's how I've always focused. And I did have mentors teach me that over the last couple decades, telling me always, when you're up on stage and you're teaching people, because I've done, some of that training, as you know, in
Right.
regards to
Yeah.
finance and other stuff, or, even on a Zoom webinar call, all you hope to, and you don't set yourself up for mental failure by telling yourself, if I reach one person, I've fulfilled my, part of
Yeah.
what my destiny is to serve and change people's lives, and not be so fixated on the haters. And like they say, though, my mentor Tony, who you're familiar with, always says, you got to celebrate your first hater, your first critic, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it means you've arrived, right? So,
Yeah.
right, you've arrived. So if we're teaching a group of people, like you said, 100 people, and I have one person that comes up to me, pats me on the shoulder, shakes my hand, pre-COVID, obviously,
Yeah.
um, you did an amazing job. I got this and this and that. It refuels you. If you look at it the right way, it's like another energy source. Like we're talking about Tony Stark, they stuck another energy source into me, and I'm all of a sudden, I'm Iron Man, and I'm even stronger than before. We need to
Yeah.
celebrate the wins. So speaking of celebrating the wins, what do you see that as being? How do you celebrate wins? Like, the biggest thing is, and the reason I mention that is people get into a point where they celebrate too long, right? They
Yeah.
don't realize they need to celebrate, but they can't keep their eye off the prize or off the end result or what they're trying to do. So what do you do in your life? Personal, whatever, maybe it's business. It doesn't, there's no right or wrong way. What do you do to celebrate your wins?
Yeah, there's definitely a time to celebrate, right? And there's definitely times, low times as well, right? What I do to celebrate my wins is, we used to pre-COVID, we used to go out, we used to celebrate, my wife and I and the family and stuff like that. But, we try to bring it in home. We try to do fun events in the house to celebrate. We do a lot of high fives. My daughter's online right now learning. And when I hear her respond or even give effort, I'm always high-fiving her. Right? I'm always reaffirming that constant connection of greatness, because that's really what I want to instill in my children. Because it's up to us, and if we want to be good parents, it's up to us to instill what we want our children to believe, right? Whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's money. We know our school system is failing our children in some areas, if not a lot of areas, right? And we won't get into that political realm, but the only way that we're going to ever be able to turn around and make that change is if we turn around and A, stand up for it and voice our opinion about it, but B, teach our children what life's really about. Teach them money and finance from a young age, right? If we know that the school system isn't going to be doing that, then it's our responsibility. And if they come out and as adults and they still don't know about money and finance, well, then we've done a bad job of turning around and instilling our moral beliefs and our values on our children. Or maybe we have as a result of not teaching them, right? So we need to make sure, we talked about dedication before, that we're raising our kids to be young adults, and that we're teaching them the values of, first of all, like self-esteem, greatness, but we're also turning around and teaching them the tangible skills of turning around, and life skills, which are like the money skills, how to balance a checkbook, what credit card debt actually means, right? A lot of people don't know what it means, right? Or how it affects you negatively. So it's our responsibility as adults, as parents, as teachers, to be able to teach that to our younger generation, to ensure that they grew up the way that we want them to.
I agree with you 100%. It is our responsibility. It also is a really, and this isn't saying that it's not possible, but it's really tough sometimes to instill our knowledge within our children, though, because we're too close to them. And,
Yeah.
you talk about the high fives. That's a great way to, put into Pearl's mind that, you're succeeding, and that's great. But you talk about teaching finance and stuff out of my 5 kids. I sat with them. I tried communicating it with them. But, at the end of the line, I'm the worst teacher for them, to be honest, right? It is my responsibility. So don't get me wrong. I'm not shirking that responsibility, but I find now as they become adults, now that's when they're coming back to me to find out my knowledge, because at the end of the day, we sometimes have to, we're our own worst enemy. We can't admit that our parents know more than we do in certain,
Yeah.
not all parents, but some parents like me. Anyway, just kidding.
But
And
you've been,
yourself,
yeah,
they didn't really grab onto it until now they're adults and they're reaching out to me.
absolutely.
And not all of them. They come to me in their own ways. And, you know, and I've had to tell some of my adult kids, listen, because I'll say something to them, and then now you have that connection, that relationship with them as they're the parent and the child, where they're adults, and they take things the wrong way that you might say the exact same way to a Sheldon, right? And so I've had to tell them, listen, if you want me to help you and teach you, I have to treat you like you are a client.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I become friends with my client, but they don't get butthurt when I tell them about stuff. They respect that fact, and we need to take out the personal connection element so that I can teach you. So yes, we are responsible to teach, but damn, it can be hard when it comes to
Oh,
our own children. And as they get older, it doesn't
absolutely.
necessarily get easier.
Well, because we're a little bit emotionally invested in them as well, too, right? So it does make it a little bit harder, absolutely. But, having the conversation, that's the biggest thing,
Oh, absolutely, I
right?
did.
And a lot of parents don't even have that conversation. A lot of parents don't even instill any money beliefs in their kids, right? And I'm like I said, there's so many things and so many ways we can go down, but there's a lot of people that think that, like, we can get something for nothing. And that's not the way that society works. It's not how business works. It's not how anything works, right? A lot of people grow up entitled, thinking like it's all handed to me. And that's just unfortunately not the real reality when they hit the real world.
Well, and then people think that things are handed to us. And again, back to what we talked about at the initial part of the conversation, people don't see what's going on behind the scenes,
Yeah.
Sheldon. They just don't grasp the fact of the amount of effort people that have money have had to go through. Yes, there's a small segment of the population that get handed a silver spoon. And then there's some that take that silver spoon and they make it into a giant scoop shovel that's gold plated or solid gold, because they worked their ass off to keep what was handed to them. They still had to be tenacious. They still had to put in the work. But one of the things I liked you talking about too, though, talking to our kids about money and finance, and they pick up on things and taking that responsibility, whether or not it sinks in, is one of the things I worked on with my kids all the time is what's the difference between a need and a want. It drove them freaking nuts. And now I
Yeah.
do hear them talking about it. Is that a
Yeah.
need or is that a want?
Or is that a
And
want?
yeah, so every time you want to buy something, you think to yourself, and am I perfect? Absolutely not. I don't think any of us are. There's times where I've done stuff and really I think to myself, I've convinced myself it's a need, and then
Yeah.
I get it and I go, oh crap, that was actually a want, and I convinced myself. So we can be our own
Absolutely.
worst enemies, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, you bet. We can definitely be our own worst enemies, right? And when we actually see our kids doing that, it kind of brings you, I'm sure, a little bit of pride, seeing that they're actually paying attention. That even now that they're doing that, right? And they're going, oh, okay. And you just have to go, that's something I taught them, right? Like nothing more. And I believe this really comes down to like seeing an action as well, right? Like nothing gives me more joy than seeing my little daughter hop on a video, for example, and being like, hey, everybody. And she'll go into like her own little motivational speech, or she'll read a book that she wrote, or whatever the case may be. The fact that she's super confident on camera, right? And she's already encouraging people. She's already like, here's my book, and like teaching and all of those things. It brings me so much
Proud papa.
pride. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Like, Absolutely. Kind, caring, full of self-esteem, motivated to turn around and take on what comes next.
Well, sometimes, it's so awesome you brought that up. I've got chills right now because, we look at our kids and as they grow up, we always not, I shouldn't say always, but many people are critical and they forget to look for the good things that their kids are picking up from them. And that's, kindness. My kids are super kind. One of the things that people have constantly brought up to me from the time my kids were really little to now they have it with their own kids is manners and being polite. I think that's one of
So
the,
important.
that's such a forgotten thing in our society to be kind and have manners. Please, thank you. And to be complimentary of other people
Yeah.
and be that shining light maybe for the first time in their day. And my kids would see me do that. I go, into a store, for an example, and a clerk, and I tell them, wow, that's a nice necklace. Those are nice earrings. Or, wow, brother, that's a nice tie or whatever. And I always told them you have to be sincere. You have to be genuine. Otherwise, don't open your mouth and say anything. But it's our responsibility. And then I seen those things that I was doing and talking about with my kids. So take aside the financial thing, which I wish I could have instilled in them more. I'll take some of that responsibility on the financial side. My brain wasn't always there either, raising 5 kids. But
Right, right.
the
Things
biggest
happen.
biggest thing that I won with my kids is their kindness and the fact
Yeah.
that they're polite. And now they're teaching their own kids that. And we just have to realize that, like you talk about Pearl, and she's talking about her book, and she's doing that and this, and that's a proud thing as a parent that they're starting to understand.
Yeah.
And we need to stop focusing so much on our children or even ourselves on the negative and celebrate the, like we talked about, the wins, right? So,
Well, and one step further on that, Dwight, is like gratitude,
oh,
right?
big time.
Being grateful for that, taking the time to be able to acknowledge it, and then being like truly not only like full of like being a proud papa, but also being like so grateful,
Yeah.
right? Like so many of us take gratitude for, we just take it for granted. But it's gratitude, and it's when you take the time to actually reflect and give thanks that you actually start to enjoy the simple things of life and the small things in life that actually make huge differences. And those little gratitude moments, even the other day, we have condensation on the windows, and my son's writing on the windows, and my wife hates it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I couldn't help, because they're getting dirty, right? But to me, I couldn't help but just look with pure awe and pure gratitude and just pure amazement as he sat in there and he drew his picture. Like, what is he experiencing at this particular moment?
You'd like to climb
Right?
into his mind and experience it at that age level.
Absolutely.
It would be
Because
so
he's
thrilling.
experienced so much joy at this particular point because it's so new. It's so exciting. It's like, look what I can do. Right. And like I said, I was grateful for that moment. Like I said, I'll probably end up cleaning the windows, but just taking time to be grateful. And gratitude, guys, depending, doesn't matter where you are, if you're in a low point, if you're in a high point, it's what turns around and makes the bad things better. Because all of us someplace in our life have something to be thankful for. We just haven't thought about it or focused on it because we've been too busy focusing on the negative and all the shit in our lives that we haven't taken the time to realize all the good things and all the pleasures and all the life's graces that's been actually shone upon you. Right. So I could go on and on and on about that, but gratitude, like I said, I'll mention one book. It's called The Gratitude or The Magic, and by Rhonda Byrne, I believe is her name. It's a phenomenal book. It's 28 Days of Gratitude. Absolutely changed my life from negative to positive. When I was at the worst point of my life, I had an opportunity to turn around and flip it around, and it absolutely did. And I've been a huge opponent of that book and gratitude ever since. So.
That's fantastic. So, I want to make sure I've got so many things. We're going to have another podcast conversation in the future. But one thing I do want to touch on, which is really important for the listeners to understand, um, tell the listeners exactly what is affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
Explain it to them, go wherever you want to in that part of the conversation. But they need to understand what affiliate marketing is, because there's so much confusion I find around what affiliate marketing is. And people, when they're confused, tend to avoid things.
Yeah.
And, I want you to clear that up for them, please.
Thanks for asking, because a lot of people, like you said, there's a lot of confusion out there. Affiliates have been one of those things that have just been like thrown out, and we see it on the internet and we're kind of like, oh, what's that, right? But I really believe for anyone that's looking to get into marketing, online marketing, someone to learn the nuances of like how to set up a funnel, how to set up a sales page, how to be able to write emails, like it's all important and all encumbersome for all of these campaigns. So when it comes down to affiliate marketing, the simple reality is you take someone's product and someone's service, and that's a great point right there that I need to make, is it's not your product, not your service. So you don't have to take the time, do the market research or anything else. That's already done for you. And then what we do is we find an audience of people that we can match that product over to. So it's we've all been accustomed to network marketing, for example. One person tells the next person, tells the next person, tells the next person, right? And it's really the same with affiliate marketing, is we're just taking someone else's product and sharing it with a group of people. And what affiliates are very good at is finding the group of people to be able to share people's products and services. Because most people will turn around, build a product and service first. And then the big thing that I always get asked is like, Sheldon, I need to generate leads and I need to be able to find people. So they're looking for the audience. So that's what the affiliates have a great way to do, is build an audience, gain rapport of people that like, know, and trust us. And then what we're able to do is we're able to match up the right products and services, able to serve our audience, and we make a commission for doing that. Simplest form. It's the easiest form to someone to get involved.
That's amazing. And you hit the nail on the head. It is basically, it's a connection thing. It's just like
Yeah.
the association stuff, but it's on a digital stream. So, that's, with your digital journey itself, this kind of ties into other things we're talking about. So when you talk about your digital journey as a society, we so often hear people speak of life, finance, and fitness journey.
Mm-hmm.
However, you're more specific and speak of a digital journey. What exactly does the digital journey mean to you?
Yeah, well, I think we all have a journey, right? Where we start and we finish. Just a lot of people haven't turned around and conceptualized that or brought that to other people, right? So when I talk about my digital journey, what I'm talking about is where I came from to where I am today. My skills and my knowledge has gone from beginner to mid to expert level. Right. So my digital journey along the way, and everyone, it doesn't matter your journey, but just to be able to turn around and share that information is your journey. To be able to share that online, to share that digitally. Right. So that's what I mean when I talk about a digital journey, is from really being able to share where you are today and be able to share where you're going, what you're doing, what you're accomplishing. Because what you're going to look back at is like, I look at my automotive, and I'll back up for a minute. You look at my automotive career for 16 years, I don't have pictures, I don't have photos, I don't have any way to turn around and really document that journey. But now, because we have social media, we have our phones, we have different Instagrams and all these social media, different platforms, we have the ability to share our journey. And my digital journey has been over the last 6 years of my life, sharing where I started and where I've come to now.
And you talk about it. I know with the advent of technology and social media, and now all these apps for our smartphones, and websites we can go to look at all the people that track their fitness journey. So now they're taking a before picture, then they're taking daily pictures, like Andy's 75 hard program. And really, at the end of the day, you're right. Your digital journey, you're just sharing where you started, where you finished, and along the way people can see snapshots of your success, your challenges. I won't say failures, because failure is a terrible word. Our character building moments and stuff. So yeah, that's awesome, because bottom line, we're all on some sort of journey, But the biggest thing is along the journey, don't forget there's other people starting that journey at the same time. They need your vulnerability. I wrote down that, we need to see the vulnerability of what you've gone through. It gives people hope. It gives them faith that they can get through it. If Sheldon can get through it, look where he's at in 6 years.
Yeah.
And he's still doing the grind. He still has his struggles. Dwight's been doing it for this many years, and he's still going through the struggles and going through the grind. The difference is he's tenacious, and Sheldon's tenacious. They're dedicated. They don't give up. So we need to share our journey. And, thanks for sharing your digital journey. Obviously, there's so many more things we could talk about, but we're running out of time. So one of the things I want to ask you, Sheldon, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Yeah, you know what? It's all about giving a heck and not giving up. It doesn't matter what area of your life it is. Whatever matters to you and what you give a heck about is going to turn around and what you're going to focus on. Right? So by focusing on it, you need to come up with a plan, however that is, of strategic action steps, mental action steps, even to lead to the action to be able to get where you want to go. And when you give a heck, that's what you're focused on. When you give a heck, you're going to actually give to other people. You're going to share with other people. When you give a heck, you're going to care if your kids are acting a fool, right? You're going to do all of those things. So, when it comes to like not giving up and just tenacity, it's the best thing that you can do, guys. There is no failure, right? I teach my kids this all the time. There is no failure. There's just an opportunity to learn, grow, and do better.
No, that's
right?
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's something that stuck with me. And it's one of my affirmations that I say every morning to myself. I cannot fail today. I can only learn, grow, and be better than I was yesterday. And it's such an powerful thing. So when you give a heck, when you look at the things that are important to you, when you study those, and when you take action towards those, that's what it's about. A lot of people, and I'll finish on this too, or a lot of people, if you ask them if they would spend 5 years in school to come out and spend or to make 6-figure income, a lot of them would say, I'd take that deal all day long. Right? But the problem is that most people, just like starting a podcast, starting anything, they turn around, they end by episode 5, they end by episode like month 5, right? They're like, holy smokes, it's like 6 months in and I got another 4.5 years to go to make 6 figures. I can't do this. Right? But it's just the tenacity. It's the wrong mindset. Knowing that you just continue to go, that you continue to get better. Little by little, a little equals a lot. And it's just another philosophy that just one step in front of the next is going to turn around and eventually get you to your goals, as long as you can focus on them for long enough to keep them in mind and keep them in sight. And do whatever it takes to turn around and do that. That's what you're actually going to do. And that's how you're going to achieve success as well. So,
yeah, there were so many valuable nuggets. Those that are listening to it, rewind and listen to that again, because gratitude and, our affirmations, the things that we tell ourselves, the end result, the prize, like Sheldon said, could be 5 years out. Don't quit after episode 5 of your podcast, or don't quit at anything. Right. Keep on going. Obviously, there's things in life that we have to disconnect from that are just, they're not resonating. We don't feel a vibe. But if it's something you truly have a passion for, you got to carpe diem, you got to seize the day, you got to go after it and do whatever it takes to, succeed. Obviously, it has to be legal, ethical, moral, right? You got to be a disclaimer. You don't want to be taking advantage of others. You always want to treat people.
You always want to serve.
Yes, you always want to treat people how you wish in the past people had treated you, right? Yeah. Right? You always got to set that example. So, well, our time is almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what is the best way to reach you, Sheldon?
Yeah, you know what, guys? The best way to turn around and reach me is probably on Facebook. I'm there 90% of the times. Just Sheldon R. Klassen or Sheldon Klassen and the Smarter Affiliate. If you put either of those in, you're going to turn around and find me.
Well, that's fantastic. And I'll make sure that's put into the show notes as well. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck. Sheldon, I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others can learn. It's never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.